My wife cheated with her coworker for 3 months, but when I confronted her with the photos I took, following her, she fell to her knees begging, and my response left everyone speechless. I'm 34 years old, work in sales for a tech company, and honestly, never thought I'd be here telling this story, but I need to get it off my chest, because what happened a few months ago basically destroyed what I thought was a solid marriage of nearly 10 years. I guess I should start at the beginning, or at least the day everything went to hell, which was when I came back early from a work trip and my entire life changed in a matter of hours. It was Thursday. I remember perfectly because normally my work trips last until Friday. But this time we managed to close the deal faster than expected, and I decided to come back a day early to surprise Stephanie, my wife. We'd been married 9.5 years, together since college, basically, and I thought everything was fine between us. You know, the normal problems all couples have, but nothing serious. She worked in marketing for a mid-sized company like 20 minutes from our house, and I traveled quite a bit for my job, but it had never been a problem, or so I thought. So I got to town around 3 in the afternoon, and I decided to stop at the gas station near home to fill up the tank before getting there. I was there pumping gas when I saw a car that looked familiar pass by on the street, and I swear it was Stephanie's silver Honda Civic, the one I'd bought her like 3 years ago. It seemed weird because she was supposedly working at that time, but I thought maybe she had a meeting outside the office or something. I didn't give it much importance at that moment. I finished filling the tank and decided to call her to let her know I was already home. Like, surprise, honey, I came back early. She answered, after like 4 rings, and I heard her kind of out of breath, like she was busy or something. I told her, hey babe, I came back early from the trip, I'm getting home now, and she was silent for a second that felt eternal and then said, oh, that's great, honey, I'll see you there in a bit. I'm still at the office finishing up some things. I asked her if she needed me to bring her something to eat, and she said, no, don't worry, I already ate. I'm leaving in like an hour. I hung up and kept driving toward the house, but something didn't add up. If I had just seen her car near the gas station literally 2 minutes ago, how could she be at the office that was on the other side of town? I thought maybe I'd mistaken the car. There are lots of silver Honda Civics out there, but the doubt was already planted in my head. I got home and everything looked normal. The house was locked, the mail in the mailbox, nothing out of the ordinary. I started unpacking my stuff, and like 15 minutes later, I heard a car arrive. I looked out the window and it was Stephanie, arriving in her silver Honda Civic. And the weird thing was, I saw her park super fast, almost like she was in a hurry or nervous. I went out to meet her and she hugged me and gave me a kiss, but I felt her tense, different, like she was acting. I asked her, how was your day? And she said, oh, the usual, lots of work, and then she quickly went into the house saying she needed to use the bathroom. That night we had dinner together, and everything seemed normal on the surface, but I couldn't shake the weird feeling in my chest. Stephanie was checking her phone like 10 times during dinner, which also wasn't that strange because she always checked her social media and messages. But this time she was doing it differently, like more hidden, turning the screen so I couldn't see. When I asked her if everything was okay, she said, yes, everything's perfect, just work stuff. The next few days, I started noticing things I hadn't seen before, or maybe I had seen them but hadn't paid attention. Stephanie was coming home late from work, like 3 or 4 times a week, always with different excuses, urgent projects, meetings with clients, team dinners. Her phone became like her vital organ. She took it everywhere, even to the bathroom, and she put it face down when she left it on the table. She'd get in the shower and take her phone with her, something she'd never done before. I tried to convince myself I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, but the feeling in my stomach wouldn't go away. One night, like 2 weeks after the gas station incident, Stephanie told me she had to stay late at the office again, something about an important presentation for the next day. I said, okay, see you later, and she left around 7 at night. I stayed home watching TV but couldn't concentrate, so around 9:30 I decided to do something I'd never done in 9 years of marriage. I decided to stop by her office to bring her coffee and something to eat, be the attentive husband, and also confirm that my suspicions were pure nonsense. I drove to her office, and the parking lot was almost empty. There were like 3 cars, and none of them was Stephanie's. I called her cell, and she answered after several rings, and I asked her, how's the work going? And she said, oh, Andrew, I'm super busy here with all this. I can't talk right now. I said, okay, I'll let you work, see you at home, and hung up. My heart was beating like crazy because I'd just confirmed she'd lied to me. She wasn't at her office. She was somewhere else lying about her location. I drove back home, taking a different route, basically driving around the neighborhood aimlessly because I didn't want to get to an empty house and sit there thinking about all the horrible possibilities. I passed by the gym where we sometimes went together. Her car wasn't there. I passed by the mall near home. Nothing. I passed by her best friend's house. Nothing. And then, like 3 blocks from our house, in a normal residential neighborhood, I saw her car parked in front of a house I didn't know. I parked like half a block ahead and sat there in my car feeling like I was going to throw up. It was a 2-story beige house with a well-kept yard, and Stephanie's car was there parked in the driveway next to another car I didn't recognize, a black Toyota Camry. I stayed there like 20 minutes, not knowing what to do, whether I should knock on the door or just leave. And finally I decided to take pictures with my phone of Stephanie's car, of the house, of the address visible on the mailbox. I drove home, and Stephanie arrived like an hour later, like 11:30 at night. She came in with her laptop and her bag acting completely normal, saying, "Ugh, what a long day, I'm dead tired." I was sitting on the couch and just said, "How'd it go?" And she started telling me about the presentation and the clients, and I let her talk, knowing every word was a lie. That night I slept like 2 hours, just turning over in my head what to do with this information. The next 3 days I did something that made me feel like a stalker, but I needed to confirm it wasn't an isolated case. Every time Stephanie said she had to stay late or had a meeting after work, I'd wait an hour and then drive by that neighborhood, and her car was there every time, always parked at the same house, always next to the black Toyota Camry. Thursday of that week, I followed her more closely and saw her arrive at the house, knock on the door, and a guy opened it. He was like our age, tall, dark hair, and they hugged before going in. I took pictures of everything. I looked up the address on the internet and discovered the house was owned by someone named Mark Reynolds. And when I searched that name on LinkedIn, I found he worked at the same company as Stephanie, in the sales department. So there was all the information I needed. My wife of almost 10 years was having an affair with a coworker named Mark and had been lying to my face for who knows how long. Friday, I decided it was time to confront her. I waited for her to get home from work. That night, she came home early around 6 because supposedly she didn't have anything pending. We had dinner together, and I was sitting there watching her act. Like everything was normal, smiling, asking me about my day, and I was just thinking, how the hell did we get here? After dinner, I told her we need to talk, and she said, "Sure, what's up?" And I took out my phone and showed her the pictures. The house, her car, the guy opening the door, everything. Her face went white, literally white as paper, and she started stuttering, trying to say something. I asked her who's Mark, and she was silent for a long moment and then started crying. Not the sad crying, but the crying of someone who knows they got caught. She tried to say, "Andrew, I can explain," and I told her, "You have 5 minutes. Explain to me how you can explain that you've been going to your coworker's house for weeks and lying to me about your location." Stephanie admitted everything between sobs, said it had started like 3 months ago, that Mark was new at the company and they'd connected working on a project together, that at first it was just friendship, but then it became something more. She said she loved me, that I was her husband, and this didn't mean anything, that it was just a terrible mistake that should never have happened. I let her talk, feeling like I was listening to a stranger, because the woman I knew and married would never have done this. I asked her directly how many times she'd been with him, and she said, "I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 times, and every word was like a dagger in the chest." I asked her if she loved him, and she said, "No, it's not love, it's just confusion. I'm confused, Andrew, please forgive me." I asked her if they'd slept together, and she went silent, and I already had my answer. Stephanie threw herself on her knees, literally on her knees in front of me, begging forgiveness, saying she'd end everything with Mark immediately, that it would never happen again, that we'd do couples therapy, whatever I wanted, but don't leave her. And I looked at her there on the floor crying, and the only thing I felt was emptiness. Like everything I'd felt for her in the last 10 years had evaporated in that moment. I told her, "It's over, Stephanie. There's no coming back from this." And she started screaming, "No, please, we can fix it. We just need time." I got up from the couch, went to the bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and started packing clothes. She followed me begging and crying, but I was on autopilot, just putting things in the suitcase without really thinking about what I was doing. I packed the essentials: clothes for a week, toiletries, my laptop, some important documents. I went down the stairs with my suitcase, and Stephanie was in the living room, still crying, saying, "Where are you going? Don't leave. Please, Andrew, don't do this." I told her I'm staying with Trevor. I need space to think. And she tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away. I told her we'll contact each other through lawyers and walked out of the house, closing the door behind me while she screamed my name. I drove to Trevor's house. My friend since college who lived alone like half an hour away. I called him on the way and said, "Bro, I need a place to stay. Stephanie cheated on me." And he said, "Come over here without asking questions." I got to his place around 11 at night, and we stayed up until 4 in the morning while I told him everything. Trevor was furious, said he'd always thought Stephanie was a good person and couldn't believe she'd done that. The next few days were a blur. I blocked Stephanie everywhere. Phone, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, email, everything. I went back to the house when I knew she was working and packed the rest of my stuff with Trevor helping me. We filled his truck with boxes of my clothes, my books, my video game equipment, my personal things. The house felt strange, like it wasn't my home anymore, like it was a stranger's house. Stephanie tried to contact me through all our mutual friends and her family. Her older sister Caroline called me saying, "Andrew, please give her a chance. She's destroyed." And I told her, "Caroline, I respect that she's your sister, but there's nothing to discuss. She made her choice when she decided to sleep with her coworker for 3 months. Caroline insisted, saying, "Everyone makes mistakes, that marriage is about forgiveness," and I just hung up. I hired a lawyer the following week, a guy recommended by Trevor who specialized in divorces. I told him the whole story, showed him the pictures, the records of the lies, everything. He told me we had a solid case and the process would be relatively simple, because we didn't have kids and our finances were pretty separate. I signed the papers to start the divorce process and told him to proceed as quickly as possible. Stephanie received the papers like 2 weeks later, and Trevor told me she'd called his girlfriend crying, saying she couldn't believe I was actually divorcing her, as if somehow she'd thought I was going to change my mind. Her lawyer contacted mine, trying to negotiate that we go to mediation or couples therapy before proceeding with the divorce, and my lawyer told them there was nothing to mediate, that my decision was final. Honestly, the first 2 months were horrible. There were days I'd wake up, and for a second I'd forget what had happened, and then everything would hit me again, and I'd feel that weight in my chest. I stopped eating well, lost like 10 pounds, barely slept. But Trevor was incredible. He forced me to leave the house, to exercise, to see other friends. Basically kept me functional when I just wanted to stay in bed all day. Little by little I started feeling better. Or at least I started accepting the new reality. I went back to my hobbies I'd put aside, started playing guitar again, joined a recreational basketball group on Wednesday nights, focused more on my work, and even got a promotion. I started realizing there were things in my marriage that hadn't been right for a long time. I'm not justifying what Stephanie did at all, but I realized we'd become more like roommates than spouses. That we'd stopped really communicating. Like 3 weeks ago, Stephanie called me from an unknown number because I kept blocking her. I answered thinking it was a client and heard her voice saying, "Andrew, don't hang up, please. I need to talk to you about the house." I was about to hang up but stayed on the line and said, "What do you need?" She told me we needed to sell the house, that she couldn't afford the mortgage alone, and needed me to cooperate with the sale. I told her all that could be handled by her lawyer with mine, that there was no need for us to talk directly. She started saying, "But Andrew, we can be civil about this. We don't have to hate each other." And I told her, "Stephanie, I don't hate you. I just have nothing more to say to you. The lawyers will handle everything." She tried to say something else, but I hung up. My lawyer confirmed that the divorce should be finalized in the next few weeks. We already reached an agreement on the division of assets, which is basically 50-50 because, legally, that's what corresponds, even though she was the one who cheated. The house is going to be sold and we'll split the profits. I keep my car, she keeps hers. We split the bank accounts and investments, and everyone goes their own way. Truth is, I don't know how I feel about all this now. There are days I'm angry, days I'm sad, days I just feel relieved it's over. I don't regret my decision to leave. I think some things just can't be fixed, and trust once broken can't be completely repaired. At least not for me. I know there are people who can forgive infidelity and move forward, but I'm not that person, and that's okay. Trevor asked me the other day if I'd ever trust someone enough to get married again, and honestly, I don't know. For now, I'm focused on rebuilding my life as a single person after almost 10 years of being with someone. It's weird, but there's also something liberating about it, being able to make decisions just for myself without having to consider someone else. I guess time will tell what happens next, but for now, I'm okay with being alone and that's enough.